there's a lot of positives, and you touched on them. The growth of the young players. The Bucks actually have a bench now, and it's been one of the best second units. I think third best in net rating since Chris Middleton returned, and that passes the eye test. That it just the roster makes more sense and pieces fit together now. But among the negatives, the Bucks were one of the best teams in the league against the best teams in the league last year, and I think that and the numbers for the starting five is what we all pointed to and said, here's the reason to believe that this team, their 5-man unit with their starters, the best in the league or among the best in the league. And I think they had the second best net rating against the top 10 teams in the league last year, a winning record. It's 1-9 so far this year, and they're in the bottom 10 in all of the metrics that you would look at. So that's the one thing that you keep in the back of your mind and say, look, part of it is some of those games came early when this team was still in the throes of it and wasn't playing as well defensively or offensively, for that matter, as they are now. But to me, that just kind of highlights the importance of all the games you have left against the Pacers, the Hawks, the Magic, the Heat, even the Detroit Pistons, because those are the teams that they're not going away, and they're kind of lumped in there in the standings with the Bucks. You've lost the tiebreaker to the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Knicks, but it's out there for the rest of those teams. You have it against the Orlando Magic. So what they do in those games, and right now they're 9-1 against those teams, those may well be the most important games that the Bucks have left this season.
Yeah, I mean, the irony of their record, right, is against teams above 500, I think. And again, there's so many teams right around 500 that if one of them drops under, then the stats kind of flip a little bit. Yeah. But I know the last time I looked at it, essentially you include the NBA Cup game, which of course, arguably the most impressive / most important game that they've played all season. The only game that actually counted for, any hardware doesn't count in any of these stats, but 12-10 against teams 500 or better. And that's including the 0-8 that they have against the top three in the East. So it's this weird dynamic where they have not been able to get over the hump against those top East teams, but they've been, a buzzsaw against every other team that is, solid to good. And of course, Oklahoma City, arguably the best team in basketball, certainly currently the Vegas favorite to win the NBA championship. And you held them to kind of their lowest point total for the season and won that NBA Cup final pretty convincingly. So, I know something we obviously talk a lot about. The season is long, right? And as fans, I think obviously I get it, right? Like you're prone to sort of examining every game and trying to figure out what its cosmic significance is and what it tells us about what's going to happen in April, May, and June. But again, and a lot of times you just got to sort of step back and just let a lot of these games play out and just sort of try to figure out what are the broader trends. And so we'll see. I mean, I think to me, the biggest thing I hope for the rest of the season, of course, can you beat, you got home games against the Knicks and Cavs here in the next couple months. And I think both those are starting end of March, I want to say. And then you have obviously some games against the West, including the Thunder. One of those games is coming up relatively soon. So those are certainly going to be measuring stick games as well. So certainly it would be a good time to start winning some of those games. But as you said, in many respects, the most important games they have left are against those teams that they have fared really well against. Teams like Indiana, where you've beaten them twice now, once at home, once on the road. That team is playing much better basketball. And so, yeah, you kind of want to see, hey, can we, challenge the Knicks, right? Could we even challenge the Celtics? But in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't know, Justin, on some level, the 4 seed probably doesn't even look that bad, right? In previous years, we kind of looked at I want to get to the 2 seed, so you have second round home court advantage. You don't have to play the Celtics in the second round. But now, I don't know, do I want to play the Celtics over the Cavs? I kind of maybe it would be okay just playing the Cavs. I think both the teams are great. So being in the 4 seed lining up against the Cavs as it would play out today, not the end of the world. And as we've seen, the most important thing probably right now about this team, aside from the fact that they have gotten back to a respectable spot, they're playing better basketball, is that they are, knock on wood, right, is that they are healthy. And, AJ Green, notwithstanding a quad injury here over the last couple of days, Dame and Giannis, for the most part, really the biggest injury they've had has been that illness coming back from Vegas. And Chris Middleton, again, you kind of take it game by game with him, but he has not had any real physical injuries that have kind of held him back since coming back from those 2 ankle surgeries, aside from missing the Vegas final with illness as well. So again, season is long. You just hope that the good health continues. And as we've seen, the playoffs are often just kind of a battle of attrition. And sometimes things break your way, sometimes they don't. The last couple of years certainly felt like things didn't break the Bucks' way. And I think all of us at this point, the main thing we want to see is let's just see this team have a chance to show what it's capable of in the playoffs.
It's a long season, and we said it many times too. The 2-8 record. I know internally there's this belief of, all right, we've made enough of this. It's time to move past it and look at what we've done since then. And there's a lot of validity to that. But you take it out, and they've consistently been an excellent defense. It's even better sans those 10 games. Offense is where you're seeing some movement now, but you need to really continue to see that. But, again, it's not as easy as removing the first 10 games. But if you do, this is one of the better teams in the league by all of the numbers and the standings as well. So it's just trying to see, where's the truth here? Is it those first 10 games? Is what they did after? Is it somewhere in the middle? And that's what remains to be seen over the course of the final 41 games of the season. As mentioned, you can find them on the Locked On Bucks podcast, the game recaps after every game. Frank, always good to catch up with you.
You too, Justin. We will talk soon.
On Bucks Weekly here to share some insights on the first 41 games for this Bucks team. I mentioned we'll get another check-in with Van Fias of Brew Hoop, and more importantly, take a look at some of the cap things to keep in mind, because I'm sure you've heard aprons, right? First apron, second apron, all of that tossed around with trade rumors with teams like the Bucks. So what does that mean? What should Bucks fans expect in terms of realistic moves? Maybe not individual players, but the types of moves that the Bucks could make, being in the second apron here as the trade deadline is just over 2 weeks away. So we'll get the thoughts from Van Fias coming up momentarily. When we return, though, we already had a handful of games go final, and some of them impact the Bucks. So we'll update you on today's NBA scoreboard after this on Bucks Weekly.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers, where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom-quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
All right, a big day across the NBA here as Bucks Weekly continues. We've had a handful of games already played today. 6 final scores to get you caught up on. I mentioned a few of them have some importance surrounding the Bucks. One of those scores, I mentioned it to Frank, one of the teams that won't go away, the Detroit Pistons beat the Houston Rockets today, 107-106. So Detroit back above 500 now, 22 wins and 21 losses. The Knicks hold off the Atlanta Hawks 119-110. The importance of that game is had the Knicks lost, and again, the Bucks don't have the head-to-head tiebreaker, you're going to have to finish with a better record than the Knicks. But if the Knicks would have lost this game, they would be tied with the Bucks in the loss column. So you got to start to pay attention to that figure in the loss column here. The Cleveland Cavaliers blow out the Phoenix Suns 118-92. The Celtics do the same to the Warriors, a 40-point home loss for the Golden State Warriors. But more importantly, games that carry significance for the Bucks. If you want to do some scouting, the New Orleans Pelicans are playing the Utah Jazz as we speak. Of course, the Bucks will be in New Orleans on Wednesday night, and it's 73-51 just starting the second half. The Jazz up 22 points on the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion Williamson is not playing in this game for New Orleans, who have dealt with a number of injuries this year, sitting at 11-32. We'll take a closer look at that game a little bit later in the show, but when we return, get some more perspective on the Bucks at the midpoint here and what to expect as we approach the trade deadline, what the second apron means. We'll dig into that with Van Faez of Brew Hoop after this on Bucks Weekly.
AccuNet Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS ID 255368.
Elizabeth and John bought their starter home 8 years ago, BC, as in before children. Now, with 2 elementary school-age kids, they wanted to make a move to the suburbs for a bigger home with more yard. But they didn't know if or how they could buy their next home without selling their current one. Fortunately, a friend who was a multi-time AccuNet client connected them with us, and we soon determined they could, in fact, afford to buy without selling first, which was a big relief to them and their real estate agent. Armed with an AccuNet rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval, it still took several weeks to find the right home for the next chapter in their life, but I'm happy to report that Elizabeth, John, and their boys opened their presents on Christmas morning in their new home after closing just a few days before. Whether you're buying your first home or your next home, go with the pros who have all the tools and know-how to make your home buying experience as smooth and successful as humanly possible. Get started with your rock-solid guaranteed pre-approval by clicking on the blue button at AccuNet.com. That's ACCUNET.com.
With the ability to market luxury homes on a higher scale than ever before, Century 21 Benefit Realty has taken a huge step forward to tap into a global network of buyers. Maximum exposure to spotlight your unique home with our fine homes and estates marketing so you can sell it for the highest price. And with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission, you win. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated. First off, our 1.9% commission structure helps get their foot in the door, and that's why agents like working here. But what they really like is having the strongest marketing tools available, with the resources to help them sell homes at the highest prices to satisfy their clients. Century 21 Benefit Realty offers what agents like most, and that's to help them be successful. If you really want to believe in the business model that you're representing, give me a call. I'm Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty. Call me, and let's talk about your future. Each office is independently owned and operated.
This is Bucks Weekly on WTMJ.
First of 2 days off for the Bucks this week as they don't return to the floor until Wednesday night in New Orleans, taking on the Pelicans. A disappointing Pelicans team so far, to say the least. A lot of injuries, the story there. And we'll take a closer look at that Pelicans opponent momentarily here, but joined now by a man whose work you can read on brewhoop.com. And among the contexts that I have, this is usually the one that I bounce things off of and make sure I'm correct when it comes to any cap machinations and what the Bucks or any team can or cannot do as a part of the second apron. That is Van Faez. I do want to get to the cap stuff with the Bucks as we're rapidly approaching the trade deadline. But something I've talked about with a few others already today, and curious your thoughts on this. We're 41 games into the season at the midpoint. And if I were to tell you the Bucks would be in the top 10 consistently on defense, I think you'd be very, very pleased and think, man, this team they're 41 games in. They're like 31-10 or something like that. If they're a top 10 defense, the offense is still yet to come around and not click the top 5. So what has surprised you more so far this season? That the defense has been consistently elite, or that the offense hasn't quite gotten there yet?
I would say it's that the offense has just been mediocre. Before the season, we have a round table on Brew Hoop, where we just go around the staff and we ask questions about what might happen in the season. We all answer them, and one of the things we always do is where do you think the Bucs will finish in the defensive and offensive rankings. And pretty much all of us had the offense within the top 5 to 10. I think I may have said 5th. And others were saying defense. There was a bit more of a variety there. I kind of split the difference. There were some people who thought it might have been a top 10 defense. Others were thinking, it'll be more like average. I was thinking, okay, maybe they'll be above average, about 11th, and that's about where they are. So I guess I'm not too surprised about that. But, yeah, it's just been surprising that their offense has been just mediocre for the most part. It's ticked up in the last few weeks. Right now they're ranked 10th on cleaning the glass, I know. So that's progress from a few games ago, thanks to that homestand.
Yeah, I was right there too. I just kind of felt like they're not a bottom 10 defense. Like last year, I hesitate to call it the aberration because a lot changed, but that's not who this group is. They're not, a top 3 defense anymore without a guy like Drew Holiday there. And I always thought like, hey, if you can be 12, 13, something like that, that should be good enough if the offense gets there. I know that's been a point of contention for head coach Doc Rivers, too, who, when he's been asked about the offense, has pushed back. It sounds like he has his own metrics that he's looking at and believes that group is better than it is. And we've seen flashes of it, but that's right. I'd love to see him, but that's the surprising part is Dame has looked better, and there's clearly more chemistry between he and Giannis. You've gotten a lot more shooting. You're second or third in 3-point percentage so far this season, consistent shooters that you trust. And Giannis has been just as efficient as he was a year ago, if not more. And he's added the mid-range shot. So that's what gives you the optimism that I don't know that it's going to top out where we all envisioned of, hey, could this be a top 5 or top 3 offense? It's not going to get there for the season as a whole. But as long as they're in the top 10 and that defense stays where it is, that's the thing that you would point to for optimism, because some of the things we pointed to a year ago just aren't there when you look at their record against the best teams in the league, and especially those top 3 in the Eastern Conference, and you don't have any chance to really fix that between now and the playoffs.
No, and I think that it's a possibility. I mean, even though the Bucs don't have the tiebreaker over the Knicks or the Cavs or the Celtics at this point, the Celtics have hit a little bit of a rough patch lately. Yeah. And the Knicks, they win today, but they had.
It's close, yeah.
I mean, despite that romp that they had over the Bucs about a week ago, I mean, they've been struggling a bit too. And the Bucs are only one back in the loss column from them right now, I believe. So, yeah, I don't think it's out of the question they could leapfrog one of them into the 3 seed. I don't know about the 2 seed, maybe. It's not the realm of possibility, but I think that things are just starting to even out a bit over the East, and I think maybe instead of having, a top tier of Boston and Cleveland, it might just be a tier of 1, and the only other team in that tier in the league is OKC.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, since it's a dangerous game, but one of the things when I was talking with Frank earlier too, that he brought up of, let's assume the Bucs finish 4th, because to your point, you got to finish with a better record than the Knicks, but the Knicks only have 1 fewer loss than you. So it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility, but let's assume they finish 4th. I mean, the Celtics are not going to be the 1 seed with the way that the Cavaliers are playing now. And look, I hesitate to say, would you rather play the Cavs when they're on pace to win 70 games? But there is still questions there, and they're not the defending champions. So as we've observed the last 2 years, I mean, the more important part, and I think any Bucs fan would take this trade of, look, as long as it's not in the play-in tournament, you pick where we finish. I don't care. But if you tell me Giannis, Dame, and Chris Middleton are all healthy, and Brook Lopez, I'll take that.
Yeah, I think they can win any series if they have a healthy top of their rotation. Their stars are healthy, even this year. And I'll just say for the Cavs, I'm still not completely sold on them as like a true blue title contender, at least not on the level of Boston. And probably not even on the level of OKC, who I wouldn't say is on that level either, just because, this is a franchise that's won 1 playoff series since LeBron left, I believe. They just kind of broke through last year. So some
it took 7 games.
Yeah, it did. Some untested core, but also, I think Kenny Atkinson's a great coach. I've he was someone I preferred the Bucks to hire at numerous points over the last year or two. But I think he has a little bit to prove yet as like a postseason coach, just because, in Brooklyn, he was dealt kind of a bad hand because he had to manage some egos, right? And I don't think people were on board with him, even when they walked in the door, like Irving and Kevin Durant. But I still think he has maybe a little bit to prove as someone who can both manage star talent and succeed in the postseason. So I just look at the Cavs a little bit like I looked at the Bucks back in like 2018, 2019, 2020, like regular season monsters, but I still need to see it in the postseason to really be afraid of them in the series. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still questions, too, about both the bigs and both the guys in the backcourt. Yeah. Does this work in the playoffs? Because as Bucks fans learned in the lead up to 2021, regular season and postseason are two very different things, and how teams defend you and prepare for you and attack you, two very different things. So I mentioned you're usually the guy that I'll run stuff by as like, hey, do I have this correct with the cap and especially all the changes that we've undergone? So the trade deadline is 2.5 weeks away. First of all, I know Bucks fans were starting to get into it, a week or so ago when all the Jimmy Butler rumors started to pop up. But I suppose we should level set. It's going to be incredibly difficult for the Bucks to make not only a move like that, but really any move other than shedding salary. And even that's going to have some complications because of being in the second apron. So I guess let's start here. You've heard about aggregation. They can aggregate deals in a trade, contrary to what you've heard, as long as that deal gets you under the second apron, correct?
Exactly right. The issue with the Bucks is that right now, they're over this second apron above the luxury tax, which is about $188.9 million. They're over that by about, in actual team salary, it's more like $4 million, but really because of the unlikely benefits Chris Middleton has in his contract, they're about $6.5 million over. So that means that unless you were trading Chris Middleton, which, that's something a lot of people are interested in, you would have to reduce your salary by $6.5 million, your team salary, in order to make a move that aggregates players, which is you send out two players who are making X amount of money, and you're taking a player back, or at least we'll put it as maybe X plus Y, and you're returning a player who's making Z, which is a figure between X and Y, or larger than X or Y. So the idea is that you can combine these players together to make the salary matching rules legal, make it a legal trade under the CBA. But in doing so, you would be hard capped at that second apron. Yeah. You could not go over that 188.9 figure over for the rest of the league year. So that means also if you're trading two players away, let's say in any trade, that dips you down to 13 guys. You have 2 weeks to get back up to the 14-man minimum. You need to leave enough space under that apron to sign someone to a minimum deal. That could be kind of hairy depending on how much beneath that second apron you are. So yeah, I guess the long and short of it is you can do it as long as you're cutting about $6.5 million, unless you're trying to do something even more serious with a larger contract on the Bucks.
And they can't take back even $1 more in a
Correct.
Trade. Whereas in the old rules, it was 110% or 120% that you could take back. No, it's got to be exactly the same amount, like down to the dollar and decimal.
Yeah.
Exact same amount or less money that you're bringing back in the trades, which makes it very complicated because while the Bucks have two players on the max and other players or teams have players on the max, it's not the same because it depends on the year that you signed that figure. So it's, long story short, it's going to be very tough for the Bucks to do much at the deadline, even things like a buyout. As we saw the rumors earlier today, if the Raptors can't find a home for Bruce Brown or a trade partner, they're likely to buy him out. Well, the Bucks can't sign him because of the amount of money that he makes and being in the second apron. So the long and short of it is it's good that the Bucks have really started to develop some young talent this year because I don't really know what the wiggle room is for the team. And I would imagine any move that they make, the number one goal is obviously to improve your team. But when you're that close to being able to get out of the second apron, that's really going to become the priority, because it just opens up so much more and changes everything for you. That your 2032 pick wouldn't be frozen and automatically move to the back of the first round. And the reality is, with the age of this group and the fact that 2032 is already 7 years down the road, most of the guys on this team are probably not going to be on this team in 2031 and 2032. So there's a chance it could be a good draft pick. But if you're in the second apron this year, it gets kicked to the end of the first round unless you can, as they call it, cleanse yourself and get out of the apron for, 2 out of the next 3 years or 3 out of the next 4 years.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to go back on this and check, but I think that clock might not start after this year. I mean, the Bucks were over the second apron at the end of last season, but this restriction is kicking in this year. I believe if they are under the second apron next year, again, I'll have to check on this, that they would not be subject to that first round pick being frozen or kicked back. I just think there's a way out of it, even if they do finish above the second apron at the end of this year. And I wouldn't be surprised, any trade that they make by rule is going to reduce their team salary because, like we said, and that's you can't take back more than 100% of what you are sending out, and that's actually something that applies at the first apron. So there's really no way they can avoid that. And they're way above they're about $18 million above the second apron, or the first apron, excuse me. So anything will reduce their salary. It's just a matter of it'll reduce them enough to get them underneath that. I think what's more maybe cumbersome about everything is just the fact that it would hard cap you, and if you end up in a situation where you need to add a 14th player, just not being able to do that and be in compliance with league rules. I think that's probably the trickiest thing here, because if you're trying to send out multiple players and a deal that aggregates you and hard caps you, it's a whole can of worms that's being opened.
And I mean, the other thing to monitor for this team is Ryan Rollins, because he is on a 2-way contract. He has outplayed that contract, and the Bucks would love nothing more than to not have to deal with restricted free agency and Ryan Rollins in the offseason. But you're already at 15 players. So you could potentially kill two birds with one stone, shed some money, get under the second apron, and open up a roster spot to upgrade Ryan Rollins to a standard contract. Because I haven't kept track of it, but we are rapidly going to be approaching his limit in the amount of days you're allowed to be with the team because of how productive he has been. So it's probably going to line up somewhere around the trade deadline. The problem with it is, the Bucks don't have much in terms of assets, really anything, to add as sweeteners. In other words, you'll see these moves all the time where, hey, do us a solid, take this contract for us, and we'll give you a first-round pick down the road, or we'll give you a second-round pick. They don't have any second-round picks until, 2030 or 2031, and that's the next year they control their first-round pick.
Yep, that's right. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just remember looking this up recently because I know what you're talking about. So Rollins is at 25 games right now out of 50 that he can be active, or at least he can play in. I'm not sure if there have been any games he wasn't active for, but it's a 50-game limit. He's at the rate he's playing right now, he will hit that at some point, probably, later in February or early March. So they would need to convert him, but I don't know if they're factoring in any games where he's inactive, but still, or he was active but didn't suit up, didn't hit
play.
The floor,
Yeah, I believe there's been a handful of those, not in double figures, but there's been some. So it's going to be, right around the trade deadline or shortly after. The Bucks are going to be faced with the decision of how do we upgrade this guy?
Yeah, I did a quick glance at his game log. I think I counted 9 games where he's at his game log on Basketball Reference. It says did not play versus inactive. So, that means got about, let's see,
15 or so?
16 games with which to work with before he hits that limit. So I imagine a move is coming sooner rather than later with him. Probably, I would think after the deadline. I think maybe the easiest way to do things would just be to open up a roster spot by either waiving someone like Marjon Beauchamp or DeLon Wright, trading one of them for a top 55 protected second-round pick, a pick that's not likely to be conveyed. I do think that actually, maybe Wright specifically, alongside that one second-round pick that they have to offer for 2031, might get you an okay player like we saw last year, future second-round pick, I believe it was 2028, and Cameron Payne got you Patrick Beverly. But yeah, that's not a great asset. I think they have better assets. I mean, I think AJ Green is, the type of asset with his salary isn't going to fetch much in return, but as an add-on piece, like he could be the centerpiece of a deal. I don't think that's a good idea for the Bucks necessarily. Same thing I would say with Andre Jackson Jr., right? Like these guys they don't make enough money in order to bring back a player who makes any more than he does. It's their minimum contracts. But you put them together with a larger salary like Bobby Portis or Pat Connaughton, then you have a package, I would say, that other teams might be interested in.
Well, we only scratched the surface on all the complexities of the aprons, the new CBA, and
It's too much.
It's a lot, but once we get to the trade deadline and see not only the Bucks but everybody in the league that's dealing with this, what this means for the deadline this year and what the fallout is, we will check in with you again. But you can read his work on brewhoop.com. Van, always good to catch up with you. Appreciate the time tonight.
Absolutely, man. I'll talk with you soon.
All right, Van Fayez of brewhoop.com giving us the CBA 101 as we're now just over 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. We'll update you on that score in New Orleans after this on Bucks Weekly.
By now you've probably figured out what's most important to us at Semper Fi is our reputation. Building a great character-driven remodeling company is actually quite easy. It's just the first 20 years that are a bit challenging. Great companies are collections of great people, and we have great people. They're the ones that helped us build our reputation, but they only come after you've built something they want to be part of. We don't necessarily have to look for good people. They come to us. And that's what you want when you hire an exterior remodeling company. Someone who's going to stand behind their work, and a company that is truly proud of their people. And it's because they do great work. And when you're ready, we'll do great work for you too. This is Brad Youngluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry, Semper Fi.
If you like being prepared like I do, you know the value of a generator. When the power goes out, it's a terrible inconvenience. And that's why Quality installs effortless whole home generators that give you power when everybody else's is out. This is Anthony Zanevsky from Quality, where you'll get the signature service you deserve and whole home generators that make power outage fears subside.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. When your pipes burst, water heater's leaking, drains backing up, or whatever your plumbing problem is, the reliable plumbers at Quality are on hand 24/7 to fix your plumbing problem with fully stocked vehicles and lightning-fast response times. This is Anthony Zanevsky. Call Quality first and get the signature service you deserve to fix your plumbing problem ASAP.
Call Quality for the signature service you deserve.
Call Quality, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric.
We know what you're thinking, and all we can tell you is to drive careful.
Yep, Wisconsin roads are no joke this time of year, especially when you're driving on old, worn-out tires.
Schedule yourself a tire appointment with Richlands. We carry all sorts of tire brands, including Goodyear, Kelly, Continental, and General, to name a few.
And every tire we install automatically comes with free tire mounting, free lifetime tire rotation, free flat tire repairs, and free alignment inspections.
Not to mention free wheel corrosion cleaning, lifetime warranty spin balance, and prorated tire protection.
Let's just say if you're driving around town, especially this time of year on old, worn-out tires, you're due for tire service.
Courtney's right. And remember, be safe, buckle up, and hey, always make sure you have good tread on your tires, because cold, wet, icy roads are no joke. I'm Brett Matchke with Richlands, and you're due for service.
Richlands Tire and Service, such a refreshing change. Richlands.
Bucks Weekly on WTMJ.
All right, we mentioned that Pelicans score earlier. They're making a game of it, a 16-1 run to close the third quarter. It's down to single digits, a 5-point game moving into the fourth in that matchup between the Pelicans and the Jazz. Of course, Pelicans, the team the Bucks will face next Wednesday night in New Orleans. Utah Jazz, a team they will face next week. And so they have 5 of their final 6 games to close out January on the road. We'll take a look at the injury report for tonight in that Pelicans-Jazz game because it may tell us something about the matchup on Wednesday night. So we'll take a look at that and wrap up the show next.
You're right, and I'll agree. It does sound too good to be true, but offering you affordable treatment that alleviates pain, which really does work, that we've seen in most cases insurance paid for in full, is a definite reality. It's pain relief, really. And these are FDA-approved treatments. They're safe and proven to reduce inflammation and alleviate pain. Yeah, you'll have to get a couple of shots, and I know that can scare people, but the needle is extremely small. And after giving shots like this hundreds of thousands of times, you'll see we make it very easy. You're going to feel the relief that our powerful pain relief agents give you. They're pain relief drugs that solve pain problems. And the way I feel is that Rejuvenex should be the first stop for anyone living with pain in shoulders, hips, elbows, and knees. At $65 per joint, per injection, it's probably the most affordable pain relief option available that actually works.
Rejuvenex. Alleviate your pain. Rejuvenate your life.
Rejuvenex Google reviews will tell you more.
Winning in the NFL comes down to the basics, blocking and tackling. In retirement, protection and income are the keys to success. Simply put, if you're nearing or in retirement, you can't afford a stock market crash. Hi, I'm Mitch Lyons. Having played on winning teams with the Steelers and Falcons, studying game film was a key to success. Now I'm a best-selling author and star in a new groundbreaking documentary film called The Retirement Deception. It unveils how the Wall Street machine has been deceiving us for decades and proves you don't need to risk your nest egg in the market to have the retirement you deserve. This film shows you exactly how to protect your retirement from stock market drops and produce more income than you thought possible. I want you to watch this film for free. Call today for your free copy of The Retirement Deception. I think you would agree 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is at least worth a phone call to watch this film and see how you can improve your retirement. Call today to speak with an all-pro retirement specialist to get your free copy of The Retirement Deception. Call 844-763-2837. That's 844-763-2837. MitchLyonsWealth.com. Your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a good karma brand station. You're listening to Bucks Weekly on WTMJ.
So the Bucks' next game is Wednesday night in New Orleans against the Pelicans. It's a Pelicans team that has won just 11 of their 43 games. That was not the expectations for this team coming into the season. Injuries have been a big part of it. The trade that they made in the offseason as well, acquiring DeJounte Murray from the Atlanta Hawks. It turns out that that trade, you thought you were getting the best player in the deal. Maybe you're not with the move that they made there, sending or bringing in DeJounte Murray, I should say, and sending out in that deal Dyson Daniels, who has been a revelation for the Hawks this season. But it all boils down to this. Zion Williamson, the former number 1 pick back in the 2019 draft, has had a very disappointing career, to put it mildly. Injuries, conditioning has been the big piece of it. He has played in just 194 games over the course of 5 full seasons. He missed an entire season due to injury, but his games played year by year, 24, 61, 29, and then last year, 70 games that he played in. He has not been that durable this season. He has only appeared in 10 games so far, and that's really the crux of the issue with the New Orleans Pelicans. Injuries specifically to their best player, very much like what the Bucks just faced in the Philadelphia 76ers last night. But I mention this because Zion Williamson not playing in the game tonight that the Pelicans are currently playing against the Jazz, and it was with a non-COVID illness. Not an injury, but an illness, and we've seen how that's impacted players on the Bucks. So certainly keep an eye on the injury report as we get closer to Wednesday. Pelicans will submit that Thursday afternoon or Tuesday afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, we'll have a better idea of his availability. Wednesday night, 7 o'clock tip in New Orleans. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage begins, and be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk with you again then.
Hey, it's WTMJ's Eric Bilstead. As we ring in 2025, are you heading into the new year with the same old joint pain? It's time to make a resolution, to get moving again. No more achy joints for your knees, your hips, shoulders, or your back. You're going to call QC Kinetics in 2025, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine and joint preservation. Got locations in Greenfield and Mequon under the leadership of Medical Director Dr. Ashley Caravelli. Yes, you can revitalize your joints with advanced orthobiologic treatments at QC Kinetics. No steroids, no drugs, no surgery. This is the future of medicine using an array of natural solutions. So many of your neighbors here in Milwaukee are living life again without the constant pain in their joints. Here's what you do. Resolve to get lasting relief in 2025. Call QC Kinetics today, 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. Call QC Kinetics today. Happy New Year.
Get started with your no-hassle refi checkup by clicking on the blue button at Accunet.com.
The place to get caught up, to speak out, to connect and be entertained. We are Wisconsin's radio station. News Radio 620 WTMJ, Milwaukee.
At 9 o'clock, it's 0 degrees. An extreme cold warning goes into effect overnight and lasts through noon Tuesday for most of southeast Wisconsin. Tonight, mostly clear with a low of 10 degrees below zero and the wind chill 35 to 25 below zero. From the WTMJ Breaking News Center, I'm Jessica Gatso. The City of Milwaukee Health Department upgrades the extreme cold health advisory to a health warning. Frostbite and hypothermia are significant health risks, with bitter cold temperatures and wind chills as low as 32 degrees below zero. Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services is opening the Marcia P. Coggs Building as an emergency warming center from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Tuesday. Anyone who needs help finding a warm place to stay can call 211. 2 people are lucky to be alive after a 2-car rollover crash in Kenosha County.
A Dodge Caravan and a pickup truck collided around noon Sunday near 31st Street and County Highway BD in the town of Brighton. Both ended up about 50 feet off the road, with one vehicle tossed onto its side and the other with severe front-end damage. 2 people are in the hospital but are expected to survive. A dog was also injured and taken to the vet for assessment. The cause of the crash remains under investigation this morning. So far, no one has been criminally charged. Adam Roberts, WTMJ News.
2 men face charges for robbing a bank in Fitchburg. 29-year-old Parrish Barbary Weatherby of Madison and 22-year-old Daryl Shelton of Windsor allegedly brandished a gun while robbing the bank on December 2nd. Barbary Weatherby is also separately charged with possessing a firearm as a felon. If convicted, both men could face up to 25 years in prison. On the same day that President Joe Biden issued presidential pardons for members of the January 6th Congressional Committee, President Donald Trump granted clemency to hundreds of defendants who have been convicted of crimes related to the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. CBS's Scott McFarlane has the details.
In some of his final acts in office, former President Biden issued preemptive pardons to shield the members of Congress who investigated the January 6th attack, their staffers, and the police who testified publicly about their injuries. The chair and co-chair of the House January 6th committee said the panel has been pardoned not for breaking the law, but for upholding it.
President Trump pardoned almost all of the 6